Hey everyone. Thank you for tuning in tonight for an episode of Within the Convergent. And tonight I have a good friend, Scott Mohnkern, who is an author, he's an educator, and he's also a pagan leader in different pagan organizations. So we're going to talk to him tonight about all three of those things. And Scott, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good to be here. How you doing tonight?
I am doing great. I'm glad you're here. Um, how did you start your spiritual path? Because I saw that you started at an early age because um, your father was a pastor of a Methodist church. Is
No,
that correct?
my grandfather was a Methodist minister,
Okay.
and there were several generations of Methodist ministers. My father was not, but his father was, and then his father was, and his father was, going back about 5 generations.
Mhm.
And so I was raised Methodist, pretty traditional Methodist, and I was an acolyte, and I played church organ, and I sang in the choir, and all that kind of stuff. Wasn't particularly interested in becoming a minister, but I definitely was raised kind of traditional Methodist, and that was in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And in the early 80s, I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, and in Boulder, at one of the Methodist church there, the youth pastor came out as gay. Kind of the first really big case of that, and the church basically threw the minister out on his ear, dismissed him and let him go, which in the 80s that was not uncommon. But my family and we were good friends with the youth minister, and I had my dad had known him personally for a number of years, and I'd done a tour for a play with him and everything, and I was like, there was no ill behavior or anything like that involved, and so we left the church over it. We made the decision that if the Methodist Church was going to take this kind of an attitude towards gay rights, we didn't want any part of it. And so I'm going to shift my camera a little bit. There we go. That's a little bit better. And so we left the church, and I had become what I would describe as agnostic Christian, pretty much in my teenage years, and then all the way through college, and then after college, I got married. My wife went on a traditional British Wicca path. We were in Colorado again. And I kind of started exploring options. I originally had looked at more Native American traditions because in Colorado, that's a very common thing. Decided that did not quite fit my needs. I had followed a little bit about what I call the Northern Path heathenism, and had been drawn to a little bit. I came out here in DC to DC in 1995, 94, 95. I attended Free Spirit Gathering, which we're going to talk about later on. Their 7th one. Met up with a bunch of heathens there, and it just all rang true. And that started me kind of down my modern heathen path. I practiced heathenism for about 4 or 5 years, and then after a while, someone said, well, you've been doing this for a while and you're a good teacher, you should start teaching it. So I started teaching heathen topics at festivals, and that started in about 2000. So in 2000, I started teaching heathen cat classes, and it became larger and larger and larger. In 2009 and 2010, I wrote 3 books on heathenism. And then I was doing the books, and I was running a merchant booth for a number of years, and then I got the call to run Free Spirit Gathering, which we talked about the last interview and I did 5 years ago now, or 4 years ago. And so when I took over that festival, I had to drop everything else. It's such a huge festival where I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I can't run a merchant booth, I can't do any more writing, and I can't teach. I can't teach classes and run a festival at the same time. It's just not possible. Not at a 500 to 600 person festival. And so I did that for the last 4 years, seeing all sorts of different paths. And now I can say that This year was my last year as actually coordinator of the festival. I've handed the reins over to somebody else. Patty Rohrer is taking over. I will still be around helping run the festival and doing a lot of the back end stuff, but I will no longer be the front man for the festival for the first time in 5 years. And that's the path I've taken spiritually.
Well, I know it takes a lot because I was there for 27 years, and after I stopped doing community work as festivals, I feel a lot of stress actually because it does take a whole lot of your energy to make it happen. It takes a year.
Oh yeah.
As soon as
Well,
one is over, you start the next year.
yeah, it was kind of funny. So our festival was just August 5th through the 10th this year. And on the last volunteer, we had meetings every morning at 8:30 in the morning for our volunteers. And on the last day, I told our volunteers, congratulations, you got one more day. This is an easy day out. You guys all get a month off, and then we'll start resuming again in a month. And then I turned around to the new coordinator and said, congratulations, you get one day off because we've got to start again on Tuesday to start working on the next year's festival. So, yeah. And we actually started working on this year, the 2026 festival. Yeah, I got to remember which one. 2026 festival, really right around August 12th.
Oh, wow.
So wow. It literally is a full year. And fortunately, with two of us now working on it, with me in the background doing some stuff, I'm not spending 4 hours a day. I'm spending a couple hours a day, but 2 hours a day, every day, I'm doing something, whether it's responding to emails or figuring out finances or hunting down speakers, which we'll talk about later on. We've got our first 2 speakers and are working on a couple others. I can talk about 2 of them now.
Oh, wow.
So, and you'll get to be the first ones that hear about that. So,
yeah,
running a festival is huge. People don't realize it.
Oh, yeah, I know they don't. Now, are you still teaching some Ossetrute classes online?
I stopped doing online classes. I did it a little while during COVID. Again, when the festival took over, it literally took up all my time. I probably won't teach this year, but I will probably start teaching again the year after that. It's like once I get the festival completely off my plate, I'll start teaching again. Will I teach online again? Maybe. I haven't decided yet. I'm a very big fan of in-person teaching. That's what I did. I did do virtual teaching I said my real job, the job that pays the bills. I did virtual teaching for 10 years. And I don't think it's particularly from a spirituality perspective, I don't think it's as good an experience. And again, it depends upon the topics you're teaching.
I really agree with that. Because when we have our students who kind of moves away or etc., we still teach them, and it's better face to face than it is online. But you try your best. That's one thing you can do.
Honestly, if I'm going to do something online, I'm probably much more likely to, instead of doing in-person discussion like this, is to release a set of videos.
Yeah.
I actually did.
That's what is happening.
Yeah, not heathen related or not spirituality related. I actually released on YouTube I released a set of algebra videos, how to learn algebra, because I talked to a couple of people that had a hard time understanding algebra. I said, I have a minor in mathematics. I know how to do this. So I released about 20 videos saying, here's how algebra works. They were about 5 minutes apiece, very practical in nature. And so I discovered that kind of online, I think that's a much better educational experience than, say, a Zoom session or something like that. I think YouTube videos, ultimately, it can be more professional. You can add more stuff. I just think it's overall a better experience. And all the classes I've taken a number of classes and a number of topics online. And there definitely seems to be a move towards less in-person virtual teaching. That's a weird way to phrase it. Yeah. Live streaming and more recordings.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. When you started your path and you started doing books, like you said, in 2009, 2010, did 4 of them. We have one of your books, Hanging from the Tree.
Right.
And then we have the Diary of the Runes that we have because we, when that came out, we adopt that book to help with our students.
That's a good one. Yeah, it's a good one for
Because it
students
is
who are
good.
trying to.
Yes,
Yeah, it's a good one for students that are bad about taking notes and stuff. It's a good one.
it really is. And, I appreciate that because, those two really did help a lot when, especially when you teach in a coven and you don't know much about it yourself. So you kind of you search for other ways to teach your coven on it. And of course, they become fans of yours too and, get the book.
Yeah,
So, which is pretty cool.
that's
But,
great.
in one of what I read one time is that you said that the gods don't solve your problems for you,
Correct.
but can offer aid during their path. And I love this because I say this all the time. Now, can you explain to the audience in those words of yourself
Sure.
what you actually meant by this?
So, and that quote actually came out of one of the classes, and I do teach this class on the. In fact, it's interesting. I'm actually teaching. I take that back. I am teaching a class at Hallowed Homecoming next month. Probably, they said they're going to accept something. They haven't told me what yet. But one of the classes I teach is bind runes, which is active runic magic, using the runes to change. As I phrase, I says using the runes to change your path, and when I talk about that, I've seen so many people say, well, I'll just create a bind rune to save money, and mystically, suddenly I'll start saving money. And I
Mhm.
tell them, I say, no, that's not the way, from a heathen perspective, magic works. When we're talking about magic, we're asking blessings for the gods. And I said, the gods help those who help themselves, is the way I phrase it. And I said that the gods aren't just going to fix your problems for you. If you go down a path and you start trying to fix your problems yourselves, they will help you down that path.
Yes.
And so, to give the example of the bind rune and saving money, and that's a very common one, by the way, when I teach classes, because there are a lot of pagans who have money problems. They said, okay, you're going to create this bind rune that is a sigil to help you save money. And you're going to put it on a piece of paper and you're going to put it in your wallet. And every time you pull out that wallet and you go to spend money, it's going to be sitting there, and you're going to ask yourself the question, do I really need to be spending money on this? That's something you're actively doing to improve the situation, which will then allow the gods to come and say, yep, you are trying to fix this yourself. We're going to help you along the way, and we're going to figure out how to help you along the way. And there's a variety of different ways that have come to pass. So yeah, it's independence and self-reliance are a big piece of what I think it means to be heathen, or is you don't rely upon others unless you absolutely need to. And that comes out of a philosophy that is environmentally driven. Because when we think about Northern Europeans in the 10th and 11th century, if everybody simply relied on the assistance of others and not tried to take care of themselves, society would fall apart. And so the philosophy says, I take care of myself and I take care of my own stuff, whatever that may be,
Mhm.
until I get to a point where I can't. And then I say, you know what, I'm going to need help with this. And then you go to the gods and ask for help. And that's kind of the philosophy I've tended to take. And once you explain, I said, look, the gods don't want the heathen gods in particular don't want a bunch of weaklings who are constantly asking for things. They want strong, independent individuals that can act upon themselves, and then they'll step in and help them.
Exactly. Yes, another thing that I agree on. Because your approach on meditation within your path, the knowledge, the form of meditation, the rice spread of the Northern European, you
Right.
see it differently than what others see it.
You mean I see the Northern Europeans different than other people do?
Right.
Yes. So the history of Asatru, heathenism, the Northern European practices, there are a bunch of them, by the way. Um, um, there are a lot of different ways that people tend to think about the practice. Now, there are things we all do tend to have in common. Our ritual structures all tend to be the same. So I do a bloat. There are other heathens who do bloat. We all pretty much do them very similarly. So there are some minor differences. This concept of industriousness and being productive seems to be a common theme within all the heathen traditions. But there are some things that we radically differentiate on. I'm not going to say I'm unique. I'm going to say that I don't follow the classic dogmatic path. So someone who identifies as Asatru, and I don't, by the way, claims to have their belief structure and their faith and their reverence for the divine focuses solely upon the Northern European deities. They won't go to, say, a Hecate ritual or a Zeus ritual or a Apollo ritual. Those are some good examples. They just say, I follow the Northern gods. That's what I'm going to do. I won't do anything else. Obviously, with my wife not being heathen, she's Celtic and practices some other spiritual practices. I'm much more flexible about what divine beings I'm going to deal with. Now, do I primarily deal with the heathen gods? Absolutely. Northern European gods are the ones that call to me. They're the ones I tend to follow all the time. But will I go to an Apollo ritual? Sure. Will I go to an Aphrodite ritual? Yes, absolutely. I have no issues with that. Will I go to, there's a organization here in the DC area called UTOS, Universal Temple of Spirits. It is an ecumenical possession faith. I'll go there all the time and see all sorts of different divine beings. So I am different from a lot of heathens in the fact that say, you know what, yeah, let's go to the other gods. I have no problems with them. I also tend to be less dogmatic about what is and is not necessarily within the faith. There's a large portion of the faith says if you can't find it or an Edda or a saga somewhere, then it doesn't exist and it shouldn't be part of our faith. My reaction is I get where you're coming from, but, and here's what it is that faiths change with time. Any faith that is not adapting itself to the current situation, whatever that may be, within reason, I'm not saying you have to go radically in opposite direction, but you have to be aware that times change. The times we live in now are radically different from the times of the 10th and 11th century. We think about this concept of Valhalla and warriors going to Valhalla. Am I going to say that only warriors in combat go to Valhalla under the modern context? Absolutely not. I think am I sure what the standard is now? No. But I'm pretty sure it's not just warriors because such a small portion of our population now actually ever engages in military combat. So I think there's some other standard which we're not aware of. I think we'll discover it eventually. So I tend to be the sort where I'm saying, is the past important? Yes. Do we need to adapt ourselves to a modern context? Absolutely. There's a book I've been working on for the last 10 years, 15 years now, which I'm going to get back to now that I'm not running a festival, which is a modern ethic or ancient ethics for a modern age, which is I want to go back and take a look at heathen ethics from the 10th and 11th century and say, okay, how does morality and ethics from that time apply in a modern context? There are some things that play very good, and there are some things that don't play so good. And we've got some people saying hello, Valhalla. Yeah. So does that kind of answer your question for you?
Yeah. Oh, yes. No, it does. It really does. Now I know we was talking earlier about your new projects. I mean, well, it's kind of like new. I mean, you've been doing this for about a year now.
Yeah, sure.
You want to explain that to us?
Okay, so I've always got new projects going on, but the one I think we were talking about there is a international organization called the Troth. They are a very broad-based heathen organization, and the way their structure and management works is they have individuals in various regions that serve as outreach. They're basically ombudsmen. They call them stewards. And I agreed to about 2 years ago, about a year ago now, I guess, to serve as steward for Maryland, so that if there are people that are looking for organizations, groups, heathen individuals to ritualize with in Maryland, and actually DC and Virginia as well right now, they can come to me and I can say, here's a group you might want to consider. Here's probably some groups you don't want to consider. Here's some festivals you might want to go to. Here's like Frederick Cups, which is Frederick is a city about 15 minutes north of where I live here. They have a huge heathen contingent, and they run bloats every month. And they get well attended. They got like 50, 60 people at a bloat, which is unheard of. And yeah, they run every month. So I send a lot of people up there. So that's one of the things I've been working on is kind of community outreach for the Troth, in addition to all sorts of other things. There's a festival called Hallowed Homecoming that I've agreed to teach at. I was a featured presenter before COVID, and I've agreed to teach there this year. And after I get done helping them transition FSG to new management, I may go over there and help them. They're a much smaller festival. They're about 50 to 100 people. Most of the time, they're Thursday through Sunday instead of a full week long. And they do one track class. And I'm like, you know what? That's a kind of festival that does not have to occupy all my time. So I may go that direction as well. And I got to get back to teaching, and I want to write a book, and I want to start running my merchant's booth again. I used to run a merchant booth where I did rune reading. I haven't done a rune reading in about a year because I haven't had time. And I want to get back to that. I had a pretty good representation as a reader, and it puts a little extra money in your pocket too. So,
Wow. So
lots of projects.
lots of projects. Amazing what you can do when you kind of step back on organizing events.
Yes.
I am spending more quality time with my family besides doing the podcast. And
there you go.
it's, you look back and you're like, boy, I missed out on quite a bit. But, doing an event is helping others to come closer to their path and to have people that's like them and everything network. So it's great. And speaking of organization, or I should say pagan organizing, with the pagan or the free spirit gathering that's happening next year in August 4th to 9th. I just want to give a shout out to the new organizers as well.
Yeah. So, and interestingly, Stephen Reagan is actually in the chat room right now. He is the president of the Free Spirit Alliance, which is the parent organization. So say hello to Stephen.
Well, hi, Stephen.
He would be worth interviewing at some point in time as well. So, he is the parent organization that helps transition from year to year. But he'll be around. Patty Rohr, who I don't think is online right now. She's probably feeding her family. Will be the lead coordinator. I'll need assistant coordinator and all the other staff. This year, to give you an idea for scope, we had 82 volunteers running the festival.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had 82 volunteers, and we're organized into departments. We have medical and security and vending, Merchants Row, and pool. And programming. Most of that staff is still staying in place. So we're doing some retirements. One of our people is retiring, but a lot of you won't see a big change other than the fact that I won't be riding my cart around all day. Well, yeah, when you're running coordinator, you just ride your cart all day. It's a big site.
Yeah.
I won't be doing that so much, but in terms of all the other stuff, it's going to largely be some really cool new stuff that Patty has some ideas on, and some of the same stuff. So that's very good.
Oh, cool. So how was the event this year? I know we talked about you coming back on and talking about how the event was this year.
It was actually outstanding.
Right.
We had about about between 350 and 400 people, which is about the number we were shooting for in terms of attendance. The economy had some effect on us. We didn't sell quite as many tickets as I'd hoped, but it was right in the scope where we wanted to. And what we ended up with in terms of a festival just ended up being just unbelievable. We ended up, I can't remember whether we had a workshop count when last time we talked. We ended up with 150 workshops and rituals in 6 days.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it was 150 workshops and rituals, and our featured presenters were just outstanding. Um, we had Mortellus, who they've written some fabulous books. We got Jason Mankey in from the West Coast. He graciously came to talk to us. We had Ron Padron come. He was a local guy. And Stephen, do you remember who the fourth person was? No, I can't remember who the fourth person was. It was our featured presenter. God, I feel bad about that. Stephen will remember and remind me who our fourth featured presenter was. But it was outstanding. And then the bands we had were just unbelievable. We had S.J. Tucker and Ginger Doss do a duet on Wednesday. We had Brian Henke, who was the International Pagan Musician of the Year this year, do a concert. We had Orachaya do a concert. Then we had the Muses, which is S.J. Tucker, Ginger Dawes, and a couple of other people do that. And then Saturday, we got a great deal, and we got the band Tuatha Dea to come in and do a concert Saturday night.
That's awesome.
It was just an unbelievable set. Now I got to find out who that fourth featured presenter is. Hang on a second. Well, you ask questions and I'll look it up.
I know we're going to go to the IPMAs this year in next month on the 27th. Really excited about that because we're going to try to podcast live. Hopefully, fingers crossed. We got the camera, we got the video. We just gotta.
Oh, Ugla, that's who it was. Okay. Keep going, and I'll tell you who it was. I couldn't remember who that fourth person was. Now I remember. So no, the fourth featured presenter we had, and I really want to talk about it because this guy was fabulous. Is we had Ugla the blacksmith come in. He's actually out of Ohio, and he had a blacksmith shop up on Merchants Row. And what he did is you could come up and pay a pretty nominal fee and actually learn blacksmithing with him. And he did one-on-one blacksmithing sessions all week. Literally 8 hours a day, he was doing blacksmithing sessions.
Wow.
So yeah,
and with the heat.
Yeah. Well, that was it. I will tell you, one of the things about the festival is our festival. So Freeze Bear Gathering in the early days ran in June. It ran the week before Father's Day, and it had done that for several years. And when we came out of the age of COVID, and we talked to the camp, they said, "Look, you're a big festival, but in terms of the size of because they do things other than pagan festivals, they do big concerts. They said you're just you bring in 500 people or 400 people, and I said, and then we've got these other people who will bring in 5,000 to the same site. They said you've got one of the premium time slots with that second week in June. And they said, we really want to move you to another site. And I said, originally said, I get it for business reasons. It makes sense. Where do you want to move us? And they told us they want to move us to the first week in August. And I said, oh, geez, Maryland in August is just normally painful. But we've been there 3 years now. The first year we were there was highs in the mid to high 80s, lows in the 60s. Last year, we had a hurricane just pass by us, so it rained a little bit. We had one solid day of rain, but it stayed temperate all day. And then this year, the week before festival, it was in the 90s in Maryland, and the week after festival, it was in the 90s in Maryland, and the week of festival, we had temperatures in the 70s and 80s again. So we have been blessed that particular week, for some reason, seems to be a good week in terms of temperature. It was beautiful. We had maybe an hour of rain on one day this week. Otherwise than that, it was partly cloudy, highs in the low 80s all week. And for Maryland in August, you can't complain about that.
No, that is actually perfect weather.
Yeah.
Perfect. Now that's in Museum in Maryland. It's in Darlington.
Yes.
Correct? Darlington. Okay.
Darlington. And it's north of Baltimore, about an hour.
Okay. I was just going to ask you what the location was on that. I've been to Maryland, but I've been to Upper State, Maryland.
Like over by Cumberland in that area?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the northwest corner, what we call the Panhandle.
Yeah. I think somebody said that. Yeah. Because the East Coast is my it's my go-to. I love
Okay.
all the East Coast area. Someday I probably will move out there. I don't know when, but I will make it someday. So
My
at
plan
least
is
if
after
I
about I'll be here about 2 or 3 more years, maybe 4, and then I want to move down to New Orleans. So
oh New Orleans. Hey, well that's yeah, that'd be a great place too,
hot,
actually.
but yeah, my wife wants to move down there for her religious practices, and I said, you know what, I'm getting close to retirement. I'm getting a little gray down here, so I said, you know,
Yeah.
that sounds like a good place to retire to because I'm in Montgomery County. It is bloody expensive here, so I'm like, you know, let's go somewhere cheap.
Now
So
you're in Florida, right?
no, I'm in Maryland.
Maryland. Okay, you was Maryland. Okay. I didn't know if he was in Maryland still or if you moved
Yeah,
to Florida. I don't know what I was thinking about Florida for, but everybody retires in Florida. Maybe
no, we're gonna
that's
retire. We're gonna retire to New Orleans. So
that's better. Yeah, that is better. Now, with everything you have done, I mean, you have accomplished a lot. I don't know if you realize it or not, but yeah,
I
I
appreciate
think
it.
I think you
I've done a
have.
lot of things.
So, what would you say will be your biggest or was your biggest accomplishment?
Oh wow, that's really hard. Um, Running this festival for 4 years is definitely high on the list um, in terms of accomplishments. Particularly given when I took over the festival coming out of COVID, the festival was effectively bankrupt. Um, and I've got ourselves in a position where we're in pretty not I would not say terrific financial condition, but we're as good as any other festival is these days. In fact, I think a little bit better than most festivals. We pay our expenses, all that kind of stuff. Um, so certainly this festival is probably one of them. Um, wow, that's so tough. I think there's so many. There's things I did years and years and years ago that I don't think about much, but I think they were like I climbed all the 14,000-foot peaks in the Rockies one summer. That was
Oh,
a pretty big one. Um, I did a vocal tour across Europe. That was kind of a big one. Um, Writing the books, it's interesting. It's almost like living in the moment. Um, as stuff goes further and further into my past, the less and less and less I tend to think about it. Um, you and I were talking about this. I said there's a task which I actually invite. I think is good for people as they age to do it started with as I sat and I said, let me list all the things that I've done in my life, and I started that kind of accomplishments list. These are things I've done that are kind of unusual. Some aren't so unusual. Um, and then every year on my birthday, I sit down and say, okay, let's review the list. Is there anything this year that I should add to that list? And is there anything in the past that, you know what, I hadn't really thought about this, and it should be on this list as well. And I do that every year. And I post on Facebook. If you look me up on Facebook, I post it every year. And it gets longer and longer and longer. So, but the reason I'm thinking about this is that I tend to live in the moment in terms of accomplishments. Right now, the festival is really hot on my mind. So think of all the accomplishments I've done. Is that one of my most proudest? Sure. Will it be that way 15 years from now? It's hard to say. I wrote my books 15 years ago now, and I don't think about it very much. I mean, the checks come in every so often; they're never very big. It was a huge amount of work, and I don't think about it very often. I was a concert pianist for a number of years, and I don't think about that. Well, I'm now thinking about it because I'm coming back. I wanted to play mandolin this year. That's a pretty big accomplishment. It's a hard instrument to play. So I think it's hard to say there's any one thing that I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the thing which defines me. Well, actually, I could say, you know what? I take that back. I think probably if you were to ask me the one proudest thing I am is I've been married for 35 years, which is a huge accomplishment. My wife has tolerated me, and we've tolerated each other. So being married for 35 years is a pretty huge accomplishment.
yes, I agree. I've been married for 40 years, and
Yeah. So
yeah,
yeah.
it is a huge. It's something to be proud of because
But
nowadays you don't get too many couples that stays married.
right. But
So
there are things like we've had a number of people who have been financially on the outs and they lived with us for a while. It's a hospitality thing for us. That's something I'm proud of. It's hard. Yeah, I'll think about it some more, but it's hard to say there's any one thing that this is. There's no one that's what it is. There's no one thing that defines me, and
That's good.
defines who I am. It's everything combined. Because it's so I talk about posting that list every year on Facebook, and a good friend of mine came back and they have a challenge every year, which is they try to come up with something that I haven't done. And they started with have you ever been a circus carny? And I said, have I been in a circus? Yes. Have I been a circus carny? No. So now that's on my bucket list to become a circus carny at some point. So I can go back and say, haha. But every year they come up with something and say, you know what? You've never done this. And so they keep me in check that way.
What would be the best advice that you would like to give someone who might ask you, I don't know what to do in life?
As in they're feeling overwhelmed, or they just don't know what path they should be on?
I always say actually both. What path?
Okay. I know that's everything. So let's talk about feeling overwhelmed, because that's a very common problem these days. I tell people the gods will never put you through anything that you cannot survive. It may suck, it may be unpleasant, it may be difficult, but the gods will not put you in a position where you cannot survive through the process. Like terminal diseases being obviously an exception to that rule, but even terminal diseases in some respects are about transitioning on to the next life and going through that process. So if you keep in your mind that there's gods are never going to throw stuff on me that I cannot handle. I think that's really helpful. And it's true most of the time. Just be aware that just because you can survive it doesn't mean it's going to be a pleasant experience some of the time. There are times I've done stuff, I'm like, oh, this is going to suck for the next 6 months, which that's what it is. So now in terms of finding the path and finding what you should do. So there are a lot of different ways to approach this. And there was a book, and it still comes out every so often. And I tend to start I think about, okay, you got to pay the bills first. So let's talk about finding a job. And there was a book that came out years and years and years ago, and I still think it come out with editions every so often, called What Color is My Parachute? It was a very popular book in the 70s and 80s. And the core concept of that book in terms of finding a career path is find what you love to do it and do it well, and the money will flow. And the example I use actually comes from my own things. So I've had a lot of different jobs over the years, but the one that kind of started to define my career, which I started in my late 20s, I opened up an ISP, and I was a CEO of an ISP for a number of years. And as the ISP industry changed into what it is today, because in the early days of ISPs, you had small local ISPs with 10, 20, 30,000 customers that could run. That is not, and it was dial-up internet access, all that kind of stuff. That is not the internet of today. As we were making that transition, I was kind of looking around for, well, what am I going to do when this business folds? Because we knew the business would fold. And everybody had said for years that inherently you are a teacher. Whatever it is, I teach. And the problem I had is that I like money. Money pays my bills.
Don't we all?
Yeah, don't we all? And I said the problem I'm having is I've been the head of a company, and I've been a system administrator for the last 10 years, and I'm making a salary consistent with being in a tech industry. And normally educators just don't make that kind of money. It is unfortunate, but a reality of where we stand. And a very good friend of mine had gone to work for a security company, and they were looking for an instructor. And they came back to me and said, you know what, we're hiring an instructor. Would you be interested in applying? I said, I've never taught network security before, but I'm certainly interested. And I interviewed, and It was kind of funny because I applied for the job in October. October ran by, November ran by, and then all of a sudden in December they came back and said, okay, we're finally around. We want to interview you. I interviewed the first week of December. I had an offer by the 15th of December and had started work by the 28th of December, all within a month. And so the job the thing I really liked, which was teaching, but I couldn't do because the money wasn't there, fell into my lap. So the answer is do something and do it well, and the money will ultimately flow. And I've seen a number of people to do that. It can be very hard at times because it might take a while. So from a career perspective, I think that's the lesson I would give is find what you like to do, figure out how you do it well, and ultimately you could turn it into a career path of some kind, or at least some kind of source of revenue. Now let's talk about kind of life goal directions. Where do I take my life and what's my next step? I mean, I get those questions all the time. And I think the answer is my advice is nothing is truly impossible. It can be difficult. It can be hard. But if you put yourself to it, you can generally accomplish it. And sometimes it can be incredibly hard. And one of the unfortunate things, I'm going to rant about education a little bit because that's the nature of what I do, is I come from what's referred to as a classical liberal arts education. I went to a very, very small college with about 1,200 students in Wisconsin, and they taught liberal arts. And and by the way, that type of education is slowly disappearing in the United States, and I think it will be awful for us. Because I tell people, I said, when you go through that type of education, it's not about you taking classes in your career. I mean, so I tell people, I said, I have an undergraduate degree in international relations, I have an undergraduate degree in music, and I have a law degree. So of course, I teach network security for a living. And what I tell people is I said, a classic liberal arts education like that is about teaching you the skills to figure stuff out. I use much more colorful language when we're not on a YouTube channel than the word stuff. That if you see someone that has that type of education, you can set them on any task and they will figure out how to make it happen. That's the kind of attitude I think in terms of taking your path that you need to take is learn stuff for the sake of learning stuff. Learn critical thinking, because we spend so much time about, I'm going to take a certificate in this, and I'm going to get a certificate in this. And by the way, there isn't anybody's got more certificates than me on all sorts of different things. I just got a certificate in digital photography from the University of Michigan the other day.
Congratulations.
So, but get yourself in a position where you can critically think and figure stuff out, and then the world opens up to you. Your ability to do what you want then becomes a lot easier and a lot more interesting. But ultimately, it's like, let the world kind of, there we go. It's interesting as I talk through these things, quotes come to mind. Is let the world unfold and see what's kind of interesting. It's all about, there are two things which I tell people about the world. So the first one is, they're very similarly related. I said, make sure you're stopping to smell the roses, because we are so focused today on goal-driven stuff. We don't take the time to just enjoy the universe and what it is and just revel in it. And there was a movie many, many, many years ago from the 70s. So not many, but enough for maybe some of our audience. It's a many years ago, called Thunderheart. It's about the Native American movement in the 60s and 70s. It's got all sorts of problems with it, but Graham Greene is in it, and he's talking about things. And one of the things he says, sometimes you just got to stop and listen to the wind. Is what he says. And I tell people, I said, that's what you got to do. Sometimes you just need to pause and listen and say, okay, where does the universe want to take me on my next step? And take the time to listen and let it take you where it wants to go, which is why I think in some respects, that's why I've done so many things. I take that pause and say, okay, I'm kind of done doing this. Let's take a pause and see where the next project's going to take me. with the ending of this, not that I'm ending my work in the festival, but I'm turning a lot of the work over to somebody else. And I'm kind of at that pause where I'm saying, okay, where's the wind going to take me on my next step? And I don't know yet. It's going to be very interesting to see where it takes me.
Excellent advice.
I have some ideas, but I have a feeling that what my ideas are, like I want to go back and teach. I want to go back and write a new book. I have a feeling there's something coming down the path, which I just haven't figured out what it is yet.
And you will. You will. I think the gods will guide you to your next adventure. But it's been great talking with you, and I'm still looking forward to your new projects that's coming out. And I hope that you do decide to do some more classes as well, because I would love to take them.
I won't take
because I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, I think learning from you would be an accomplishment for everybody, because you are so intelligent and such a great educator that your words just kind of just flows out of you, and it's just nice to listen to you talk.
Yeah, I have to laugh because one of the things that I do is with my job that pays the bills is I do these 300 to 500 person webinars every month. I do 4 of them. And when they started, they said, well, can you just do like 5 or 10 minutes on this topic every month? I said, it takes me 5 minutes to clear my throat. I said, if you want me to talk on a topic, anything less than 30 minutes is just not going to get you anything. So yeah, I will ramble on for ages. In fact, it's funny because I tell people, I said, I will ramble on for ages and I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. I will start at point A, want to get to point B, but what happens between point A and point B as I'm talking, I have no idea where we're going most of the time. Because it's all stream of consciousness. I was going to say, because I know we're coming up close to the top of the hour, is there anybody in the audience? I know we got a number of people here that had questions they want to ask me. I want to give people the opportunity to ask questions.
Yeah, any questions, we all take it. He can see your comments as well, I'm sure. Yeah. So if anybody would like to ask Scott anything, please do so. And it looks like Stephen is a big talker here, because
Stephen's a big talker. Stephen's one of my biggest fans. I tell people, no, Stephen is incredible as our president, and I appreciate all his compliments. But it's funny because when it comes to running this festival, I refer to him as the guy that makes sausage. Because if I really need something done and I don't want to deal with it myself, I can say, Stephen, go do this, and he'll do this. Things like we needed an extra golf cart. I said, Stephen, you got to go out and find us one more golf cart for the festival because we ran out. They didn't have enough at the site. He said, yeah, I can find one. Oh, we need insurance. Go find me insurance. So yeah, he gets the ugly stuff that I don't want to deal with. So
my husband did that. He was my right-hand man. When I needed something, I says, honey, go do this for me. Go get that or something. So
no,
because I didn't get that much help as you guys get. It was just mostly just me and him and maybe a couple others, but we managed to pull it off. So I don't know
how. Several years ago, again before COVID, there's the Troth, which we talked about. They run an annual festival. It's really a conference where they hold their business meetings and a few classes and everything. And a good friend of mine, actually 2 good friends of mine, were serving as coordinators for that festival. And I said, look, I don't want to help you. I said, I don't want to run the festival, but I'll be your sausage maker. And I said, just tell me what needs to happen and I will make it happen. And that one ended up being a huge issue because they had heavy thunderstorms roll through like on day 2 of the festival day 2. And the site was without power for most of the time. Oh, wow. And it was cabins and classrooms inside buildings. And so a lot of what I did had to do with, okay, we've got a class in a classroom. How do we get lighting in that classroom? I did a lot of that type of stuff. So yeah, that's an interesting part of running a festival that no one thinks about.
Yeah, it really is. So, well, we at the top of the hour. Any last words that
Um,
or anything that we did not go over that we need
wow,
to
so
go
many
over?
things. Um,
Go ahead, tell
so
them.
first of all, I got to do the thing. Free Spirit Gathering. Oh, that's what I didn't talk about is Free Spirit Gathering and stuff I can talk about with respect to 2026. Um, we have not signed contracts, but we're in final negotiations with 2 individuals to serve as featured presenters next year. The first one is Tava Baird, who was a presenter this last year. Absolutely unbelievable, teaching arts and crafts and all sorts of stuff. They did a class on puppets. They do a lot of arts and class kind of stuff. So Tava Baird is going to come. And then the big news I can announce is that Lee Harrington, who was a big East Coast presenter for a number of years, and had they moved to Alaska for a number of years, and they're currently in Denver. And when I was looking for trying to help with finding featured presenters for this year, I said, you know what? Let me give Lee a call and see if I can get Lee to come back here. And Lee is a big enough name in other circles that they are priced out of most pagan festivals. They charge about 10 times what a typical pagan festival would charge for presenting. It's a large number. And I called Lee up on the phone. I said, okay, Lee, I want to call in a personal favor. What's it going to take to have you to come out here? And they said, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to cut you a good deal. And so, absent any problems, Lee Harrington's going to come out and present next year. Those are the first 2 people we've got as featured presenters. I'm really excited to have Lee back because Lee teaches adult-oriented pagan topics, and it's going to be absolutely unbelievable. So that's Free Spirit Gathering. Registration is now open. You can buy tickets. You can explore being a merchant. You can present workshops. You can submit your workshops. We've already got about a dozen workshops submitted. You can volunteer. We already have 40 volunteers for next year. And we're only like 3 weeks from festival. I was kind of surprised. So that one's an option. So got to do Free Spirit Gathering. I'm going to publicize Frederick Cups. I don't do a lot of work with them, but they're just north of me in Frederick, Maryland. They do a whole ton of pagan-related stuff that I think is absolutely amazing. If you're interested in my books, I've got those 2 books you talked about, which was Hanging from the Tree, Living with the Runes, which is funny. I tell people if you're a heathen and you become a heathen author, you have to write a rune book. It's the law. Everybody's got to write a rune book. So there's that one. There's a rune diary. And then the one the one I'm most proud of is actually Hanging from the Tree, not Hanging from the Tree, is A Year of Viking Ritual, which is designed for groups that I tell every coven, grove, kindred person, I said, buy a copy and put it on your shelf. Because how many times have you hit the day before you have a ritual coming up, you have no idea what you're going to do. You can pull this up. It's got rituals you can run, feast ideas, and discussion topics all built in. There are 12 of them. So it lets you very quickly ramp up kind of your annual meetings. But if you go to Amazon.com and search on Scott Mohnkern, that's Mohnkern, you can find my books on sale and festivals I'm going to be at. So I will be at Hallowed Homecoming coming up in November. And so that is in Virginia. And you go, if you search on Hallowed Homecoming, you'll find them. They're a great 50 to 100 person festival, absolutely friendly, really amazing people. I really like what they're doing. And then I will probably not be presenting, but I will be in attendance at Sacred Space. So if you want to visit with me and find out talk more about me, you can find me at Sacred Space. I will be at Frederick Pagan Pride Day in September. I forgot about that. That's the next thing that's coming up. Not presenting there either, but I will be there hanging out. And then I'll be at Free Spirit the following year. And that's the stuff I've got. So that's what I got scheduled on my schedule for the next 12 months so far. And the year is still young.
And we can find this on your website or your
Go to
Facebook
www.modernheathen.com. And when I'm going to be somewhere, I typically will write about it. I haven't done it in a while, but I'll start doing that again.
Awesome.
And you can find me on Facebook too. If you search on Facebook and you search Scott Mohnkern, there are 2 Scott Mohnkerns. One is a Pennsylvania State Trooper. One is me. Find the non-Pennsylvania State Trooper one, and I'm there.
Well, Scott, it has been a pleasure talking with you, and I'm so excited for your projects is coming up next year, and hopefully I can go to one of those events to actually meet you
Yeah.
and your wife as well.
Yep.
And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. And I also want to say that once again, I really do like your book, Hanging in the Tree.
Oh,
And I
thank you. I'm glad you
agree
enjoy it.
100% of what you said. Someone needs to, we all need to have that book on our
Yeah.
shelf.
Yeah. So I'm gonna talk. Let me talk. I got 1 minute. Um, Hanging from the Tree, Living with the Runes. It is by no means the most comprehensive rune book out there. There are certainly some books out there that are tomes. There are a number of people that have written several hundred pages on the runes. This book is about 150, 160 pages long. It is written in plain English. It is understandable. It doesn't try to elevate on everything. It's very practical. So for anybody that's like, you know what, I'm interested in the runes, but I don't have 6 months to read 400 pages or however long it is, it's a great book for that kind of person.
Yes, it is. I would vouch for that. But we have to go. I just want to say thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. I appreciate it. Scott appreciate it.
Thank
And
you.
please go to his website. Check him out. Go to an event that he would be at. And also go to Free Spirit Gathering next year on August 4th through the 9th of 2026.
You got it.
And next year, we will also have Scott on again to talk about the Free Spirit Gathering, along with hopefully Stephen, if he would come on too. And we can really promote this event because it sounds like it's a wonderful event. But until then, blessings to everybody. Hang in there
And have
and
a good evening.
have a great day. Goodbye.